Hey, this is the Entertainment Advice Channel. What I want to talk about today is a topic of the problem with Rurouni Kenshin. So when it comes to this video, what I'm going to be talking about when it comes to problem with Rurouni Kenshin is two main things, okay? The first one is a problem with the message of Rurouni Kenshin, as well as the controversy the person who created the show, Rurouni Kenshin, was caught up in that literally goes against the very message that the show is about, okay? So now that I've mentioned that, let's get started. So when it comes to the problem with Rurouni Kenshin, when it comes to the message of Rurouni Kenshin, what exactly is the problem with it? Well, the problem with it is its anti-violence message. This whole idea that violence never resolves anything, okay? Violence just leads to more violence. It leads to more blood or this and that, whether it could be violence in one way or the other, whether it could be one thing, or even just straight up down of vengeance or something. Violence doesn't solve anything. It just leads to an endless cycle of violence that never ends, okay? And the truth of the matter is, when it comes to the problem with that way of thinking, okay, is that you see in the show Rurouni Kenshin, is that the problem with its way of thinking is that it does something that I refer to as killing the comfort of watching a TV show, okay? Because the truth of the matter is, when people watch entertainment, okay, people watch entertainment because they want to be, or I should say more specifically, they want to be entertained, okay? They want to be relaxed, kind of get past the bullshit, that they have to deal with in everyday to-day life and so on and so forth. They just want to just sit back, relax, and just maybe just watch violence, okay, happening, okay? Yeah, which shouldn't be anything that has to do with any degree of guilt, especially when you take in consideration the fact that, no surprise, it's fictional, okay? And the problem with shows like Rurouni Kenshin, which Rurouni Kenshin is definitely a part of the problem, specifically that I'm referring to anime in general as a whole, but Rurouni Kenshin is a perfect example of that, okay? Is that they focus too much on trying to put messages in these TV shows, like these movies and stuff like that have this anti-violent message, which specifically when it comes to anti-violent messages, aside from the idea that violence never solves anything, war is evil, and this and that, it's also, of course, the most infamous one is that vengeance is wrong and stuff. And the truth of the matter is, I just find it very dislikable, because the truth of the matter is, when people watch things because they want to watch entertainment like that, people watch it because they want to relax, okay? I don't want to be bombarded with something that's trying to teach me to see the world a certain particular way, that it's not always that way. Because something I can definitely tell you, okay, especially, as a black person, let alone a minority, sometimes in life you really actually do have to fight back, okay? And sometimes, more specifically, violence actually does resolve the problem, okay? Now, it might not be something people are comfortable with, but the truth of the matter is, sometimes violence, does actually solve it. Whether it could be, of course, the history of course, racism and stuff, and the effed up things that they did, specifically when you take in consideration the fact that it, especially if you're of Caribbean descent, they actually ended slavery early in the Caribbean because there was so much rebellions, to the fact that even just dealing with your own people who are not very good people, in the black community, okay? Let alone any other minority community, whether it could be Native Americans, Latinos, whatever. Any community of people that are minorities can definitely tell you, especially on a ground level, not just on a historical level, but on a ground-based level, sometimes you do have to use violence as a way to solve problems, okay? And the truth of the matter is, when I'm watching a TV show, okay, and obviously people have different ideological opinions, why the hell do I want to be presented with something that is meant to make me feel uncomfortable anyway? Okay, to be honest with you, because people have different opinions and views on things, and the way they kind of present the show is just a blanket statement. It didn't do it well, it was just blanket statement, specifically when it comes to violence, specifically the idea of revenge, okay? The idea that, seeking retaliation for someone doing something is wrong and it's unacceptable. Which, to be honest with you, that's a very, very, very touchy subject, and we're not talking about no stupid shit like, oh, maybe I'm angry at this person because he stole some of my fries without asking, one of my friends did it, or something that's really small and petty. Sometimes in life, people really do things to make sure someone's life a complete fucking living hell. And sometimes when you actually do seek vengeance, not only does it alleviate the pain you are experiencing as a person, that if you didn't seek vengeance, you would have still consistently kept with you throughout your whole life, but also it actually makes it more likely that they won't hurt other people, and specifically, most importantly, you again. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, why do you bring up topics like that? When people seek vengeance, anyone who's not fucking retarded is going to seek it for something very serious, not something over petty and silly that doesn't really freaking matter. And that's the honest truth of the matter, to be quite blunt and honest with you. Which, the topic, when you take into consideration those type of things, specific, since it's such a sensitive topic, why don't we just not bring it up in the first place? Common sense 101. To be quite honest with you, okay? So the truth of the matter is, to be quite blunt and honest with you, bringing up things like that are such touchy subjects, which, especially when you take in consideration what the director, the person, in other words, who created the series Rurouni Kenshin was involved in, is just an unnecessary way of thinking, to be quite blunt and honest with you, okay? Because the truth is, sometimes violence really does solve things, and it really does make things better. And sometimes, from what I've heard, from what I've heard, and even I'm not even gonna go too much into it, but just the most I can say from a bit of experience, when people actually do bother you and give you a hard time, when you actually go get violent, it actually does make them leave you alone, and they even start respecting you. Not that you care to get respect for them, but through getting respect for them, you actually notice, they leave you alone, to answer your question for good. So to make a blanket statement for something like that is just unnecessary, okay? And I just don't really like it, okay? Especially now, to get to the second point, when you take in consideration the controversy the director of the show, Rurouni Kenshin, was involved in. This guy was convicted of not even something forgivable, like maybe being a drug dealer or something silly or petty or some criminal operation like a scamming people or some foolishness like that, which is relatively forgivable, when you look at it. He was convicted of watching and distributing child porn. Like, that's literally one of the lowest you can go, okay? Like, to go any lower than child porn, it's like out of like the top 10, would literally be the top 5 of the 10 out of the 10 most immoral things a human being can do, with cannibalism being number 1. Child pornography is definitely the top 5 most immoral things, okay? Look, it's extremely evil. It screws people up, and it leaves people with traumatic experiences that they will never recover from, okay? Like, how do you get over that? Someone humiliating you in the worst way, and you didn't even retaliate. Like, it's a terrible feeling for the people who did it, okay? And the person who produced the show was convicted of supporting that industry, okay? That has people humiliated and has a lot of kids who do that stuff, those sexual activities on camera, are crying because they don't want to do that stuff, okay, at all. And they're very, very, very unhappy about it, and that's the truth of the matter. It's extremely evil. It's not even evil. It's just straight up sick, that's the honest truth about that stuff. And he was watching that stuff. He might have not necessarily sexually abused a child himself, but he was watching something that is a part of an industry that does that stuff, okay? So he was supporting it, so he's just as guilty of it, okay? And now he's trying to make a show telling people, holding, violence is never the answer, and holding a grudge is wrong, when actually those ways of thinking would actually prevent people from doing things like that in the first place. Like, for example, maybe somebody sexually abused a kid and killed a person, which would prevent him from sexually abusing other people. Of course, the father of the kid who let's just say kill that person. That's what I'm trying to say, and that's a problem with Rurouni Kenshin. Not only is the message of it wrong, but also the controversy that the person who created the series was caught up in literally just defeats the argument of the show itself. So in short, Rurouni Kenshin, the most I can say to be fair is that yes, it was a well produced show, but it shouldn't be taken seriously for anything. Okay, it's just a joke of a show. Okay, I like. I don't even think you should take anything you hear from it seriously. Okay, and there's probably a lot of samurai shows and shows that could be developed later on. You know, that would make you not even have to care to watch a show. Okay, because the truth of the matter is not only is the message of it wrong, the thing the person who created a series did was wrong. So in short, the show is a joke, and you shouldn't take it seriously because the message of it is simply not applicable to the real world, and that is the truth. So anyway, that's all I have to say, and I'm out. Bye.